You know what's weird, actually? I've done a bunch of podcasts in my whole life, and I've never not had the headphones on. So I'm gonna adjust
Okay.
to you here.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, we're live. So let's there's a lot. You're asking me what direction. If I guess I've never really thought about it in this degree, but if you were to think about you're going on my show, the podcast, but we're creating the show, what do you think would be an objective that we could execute on after the last couple months of us hanging out and going on walks? What do you think we'd be good at talking about?
Okay. Well, what we have talked about is your involvement in sports.
Hmm.
And I guess I've got some ideas about sports from a different perspective.
Yeah.
So that might be an interesting subject to shoot out to the audience.
Yeah, I think so for sure. And I think a lot of people who my audience knows and hears a lot from me talking about sports. So I think it'll be easy to get into that. But before we get into that, let's go an overview of your perspective, not around sports, your perspective, like your profession, from kind of how you got started. Let's go from however you want to take that, because I know we have Eyes of Sedona, so I want to talk about a little bit of this book
Okay.
as well, because that's how we got kicked off a
Right.
lot.
Right.
And then obviously before we press play, we're talking about you being a pilot. We were talking about, and I'll bring us back to sports, but WWDC is what again?
World Wide Web Developers Conference.
And that was when you saw Steve Jobs speak at that.
Yes, correct.
And that was how many years ago?
Well, it was 2011. That was the last time I was there, and that was the last time, unfortunately, he presented.
Mm. And you got to listen. I still can't believe you got to listen to Steve
Oh yeah,
Jobs.
he was great. I mean, he had the whole audience. There's probably a couple thousand people that attended the conference,
Wow.
and there was the main presentation area, the auditorium, and then there was another offshoot or two. So there's a lot of people that went there to see and listen to him.
There had to have been other speakers though too, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. But the other speakers were part of Apple.
So how long did he speak for?
Oh, it was probably an hour.
What was that? I mean, take away, what is that, 15 years ago, roughly? 14,
Yeah,
15 years ago?
yeah.
So today, what do you remember from that from an emotional standpoint? Like, what did you take away from that?
Okay. Well, the basic, there's different aspects. He was like a superhero
Yeah.
to me in terms of being an entrepreneur that was cutting through all sorts of red tape
Mm.
with new products. Certainly, he was one of the main innovators of the, cell phone, the iPhone. He turned it from a monster brick to what we now have in our pockets.
Right.
And his company is, worth basically lots of billions, maybe trillions of dollars, and
Right.
is a dominant, influencer in the world. So I guess it was just a great experience. Plus, at that point in time, I want to learn about the latest software that they had, bring it back to our guys, and develop or integrate some of the new features that he was talking about.
Yeah, because most of your life has been entrepreneurship. I mean, when I hear you and talk to you, I know you've had situations like myself, but I consider you an entrepreneur. Is that fair?
Yeah, I started out basically in the semiconductor business. Um, I guess I was in the right place at the right time. I started out working for a company called Solitron, which was on the American Stock Exchange.
Mm.
And the guy that owned it was sort of a rebel guy who exposed us to the stock market, who actually bought out Hughes Semiconductor, Sperry Semiconductor. So I was able to get involved and learn about this new technology at the time. And then I saw the opportunity to start our own company. I bought some apparatus from DuPont.
Mm.
They told us about, what we needed and everything. And as time went on, One day I'm sitting in my office, I get a call from Washington, some guy in the government. We want you to do this, X, Y, and Z. This is about the time that Reagan is in office.
Okay.
And he said, we want you to go and see these companies. And I'm thinking, what? Who is this guy? What does he want me for?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that I guess our product had got some pretty good reputation around the world, and they wanted us to work on the Star Wars program, which we did. And that's one of the reasons we opened up another facility. So that was, a great experience. And then I got the opportunity to, after a while, got a lot of patents. And I guess I just had to, do something else. So I sold the companies. And then I didn't exactly know what to do, but I had to do something. So just for the heck of it, and I was always interested in photography.
Yeah, that's where this comes
Go
into
up
play.
to Sedona. A friend of mine gave me a ride in his helicopter up and down around Sedona, and captured pictures and said, "Boy, this is a neat place. There's something there to discover." And we lived on a mountainside here in Phoenix, in Scottsdale, area, Paradise Valley. And they were thinking about doing a development. And I was thinking, why do you want to, wreck all these great features on the mountain, natural,
Sure.
stuff? And so I did a book. I called it The Mummy Mountain Story. And I basically took these pictures, and there's some they resembled some people. And I mean, you had to use your brain a little bit to abstract artistic. So I brought the big frame in our picture to be framed, and one individual sees it, a customer, and he says, "Oh, that's anthropomorphic." At that point in time, I don't know if I ever heard the word anthropomorphic.
Sure.
He said, "Why don't you go up to Sedona and take some pictures?" He says, "Unbelievable." So I figured, all right, I'll go and do it.
Yeah.
So I did it. At that same point in time, I was doing some photography courses, Photoshop, with a friend of mine. And I realized that in Sedona, everything is red. And your brain, right, basically, when it gets overwhelmed, it can't distinguish features very well. So I decided, all right, I'll just, with digital photography, just take the colors out and make it black and white. I'm doing it, playing around. And all of a sudden, I see this picture of what looked to me like a lady on the side of a formation. And it's Courthouse Butte where I saw it. It's a big butte.
Yeah.
And I just about fall off the chair because it's total proportional to a human. I mean, she's bigger.
Yeah.
And she's in this scene where it looks like there's a priest. It looks like there's a man holding a child on a bear, like a coffin or in a coffin. And I think, okay, that'll get me going. I'm going to call this The Eyes of Sedona. So that was the lady essentially telling the story. So I captured a lot of pictures in this book.
Yeah.
And put it together, put it at Barnes & Noble, and we sold, some of the books. It's basically a coffee table book. Then I, got involved in other software projects. The book I probably started like 20 years ago.
That's what I was going to ask, because I was trying to put that in your timelines.
So anyways, I just let it go. And then there was three
Was this published 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But during the time, I'm thinking, there's three pictures in there that were just bugging me because they went beyond the anthropomorphic. In other words,
is that the end of the book? The three?
Yeah.
The three testaments.
Some and there's some in other parts of the book. But it was, what is this about? This is beyond anthropomorphic. And so I don't know, I thought about it. And then I got, I guess, pulled into the whole idea.
Yeah.
Something's there. What's the message? And how can this be a message how did it get there? It's not man-made.
Right.
And the whole Sedona structure is basically 280 million years old. That's when it formed in this old seabed. So I thinking, what's going on? How does this get there? It bugged me. So I decided to do another book calling it a different name, but it's basically an offshoot, another interpretation. It's called The Matrix Earth.
Mm.
So that's available on Kindle.
Okay.
So if anybody wants it.
When did you publish that?
That's recently.
That one was recent.
Yeah.
How recent?
Well, within the last several months.
Oh, yeah. So that's super recent.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked, because that essentially came 2 decades after Eyes of Sedona.
Yeah. But it was, after looking at a lot, doing a lot of research as to why it's all there.
Yeah.
I'd say it's totally changed my opinion just about of everything.
Yeah. So let's dive into that for a second, because I think at some point that'll all lead us into our opinions towards everything, and then sports is one of them. But the title is The Matrix of the Earth, you said?
No, The Matrix Earth.
Matrix Earth.
The Matrix Earth, yes.
And so you essentially go up to Sedona 20 years ago. You take these pictures. Now, I've been to Sedona a lot. I love Sedona. And it is all red. And you don't see these figures in the mountains when you're just going on a hike. You're on that helicopter. But you take these pictures, and we'll show pictures and stuff when this comes out so people can see it. But then you take the pictures, and then you see these formations, which are all throughout the book and what we're talking about right now. And then 2 decades essentially goes through. Now you have the Matrix comes to you, and that's through research, your understanding. Okay, that I can picture that. So right now, with your worldview changing from the Matrix side of it and the Earth, where would you, starting broad and then working yourself down, what's your worldview of everything?
Basically, we don't know an awful lot what's going on. We don't know, I think, why we're even here. There's information out there beyond what I see. I got maybe 20 really significant images. I think if we go around the whole world, there's thousands of them. There's thousands still up there in Sedona that I haven't captured. Most of my stuff was roadside or little hikes. I could probably spend 100 years there photographing and analyzing it. And I took thousands of pictures to come up with a few that, I'm at the right place, the right time, the right angle of the sun. But at any rate, this is stuff that was created 280 million years ago. And, for the most part, if you talk to anthropologists, archaeologists, or historians, basically we credit humanity with going back maybe 6,000 years, 10,000 years of creating all this stuff. But there's stuff that's out there that we are mirroring that was there 280 million years ago. So it appears to me we're significantly missing data on our humanity, our culture, our purpose, and that's the bottom line that I take.
Well, so obviously if we're going, let's just, for the simplicity of it, let's just put a hard stamp on 10,000 years ago. From my historical understanding, we became the sapien, the wise, like around 300,000 years ago, and then really started taking a turn around 150,000 years ago. And then we became agrarian cultures and started creating civilizations like 10 to 15,000 years ago. So that's kind of where you're talking about, from what I'm understanding.
Yeah,
right?
when I say that, I'm talking about recorded history. I'm not talking about, markings in caves or anything. I'm talking about recorded history of deep analytical thought. And there's people that believe essentially the universe is structured to support life. Not only do some people believe here, but throughout the universe, and support intelligence or the ability to see what's going on, to be cognitively aware as to what's going on. They believe that this is the purpose of the universe. A lot of astrophysicists think that's what it is. There's a lot of books written about it.
Can you say that in like the simplest form? What does an astrophysicist think about what's going on, like definitively?
Well, essentially, they're saying some of them believe that there's a lot of proof. I just saw it today. They're saying they discovered on some distant galaxy, way far out, oxygen. Okay, so we need oxygen, right? So for water, but at any rate, they're of the belief that life is a fundamental, let's say, I can think of the right word, precipitation out of the universe.
So then there would have to be, so do you think, what's their thoughts on different life form, like other humans?
Well, everybody has that, but nobody's really captured anything in terms of, we've got other life forms here on the planet, all kinds of species.
Yeah.
But in terms of extraterrestrial, nobody's really captured anything. And you would think, okay, if something comes here, everybody's got a cell phone camera, so nobody can really escape. Any visitors. We're going to get their pictures.
Did you ever have anything when you were flying? When you were a pilot and you were flying around, did you ever notice anything? Like, what was your worldview during the years that you were flying?
Well, when I'm flying, I'm looking for other aircraft.
Sure.
I'm doing what I'm told by air traffic controllers.
So you're locked in.
Yeah, but you have time to look around. But the main thing that you're there for is to. It's pretty boring to tell you the truth. Once you get up and fly, is to just be ready for any kind of an incident that's going to happen. You have to be ready to go.
When you're being a pilot?
Yeah, you're there, and you've got to be thinking in your mind, okay, what if X, Y, Z happens? What do I do? What if this happens? What do I do?
See, that's crazy to me. Like when you're flying what's the longest flight you ever did?
Oh, probably, I guess, with the right tailwind and everything, 6-7 hours.
So you do 6-7 hours. For 6-7 hours, you're essentially just sitting there flying. It's not like you're hitting traffic. And you're driving a car or anything like that.
Well, you're not gonna. If you follow the rules, you're a certain flight level, you're under air traffic controller IFR rules. So, you're pretty safe, unless the air traffic controller makes a mistake.
It was odd to me how would you make a mistake? I guess what I'm saying is like when you're flying and you're just kind of cruising at altitude. You're still super locked in as a pilot in those scenarios?
Yeah, you got to be looking at me like, let's say I recall being in Chicago.
Yeah.
Excuse me, under the TCA.
Okay.
Which, there's a lot of air traffic control there. So you have to listen to what the air traffic controllers say, turn left, 250, right, or whatever it is. And there's a certain separation that's supposed to be maintained by their aircraft. So one day I've been flying down there and a big commercial plane comes right in front of us, like less than 1,000 feet. And I say to the air traffic controller, why wasn't I alerted to this?
Yeah.
And of all things, he says, well, you didn't hit him, did you? But that's a human mistake. That was this guy's mistake. But as a pilot, I'm not going to totally believe everything these people say.
Sure.
I've still got to use my eyeballs, not only to look inside, but to look outside as to what's going on. So there's a lot of stuff going on.
That's so hard for me to wrap my head around. If you get within 1,000 feet of another plane in the air, is it not? Like it seems, in my naive opinion, it seems like you'd have the ability to see that.
Well,
like not needing help, just from a
look
novice.
at what just happened out east.
Yeah.
The lady that was flying the helicopter
Yeah.
didn't see the commercial airline, and you have a devastation beyond belief. So, things happen fast.
That's crazy.
And the weather, what do you do in a cloudy weather? You can't see the other airplanes.
Right. That makes sense to me. So if someone flies from San Francisco to Japan or does a 12-hour flight, a pilot's up that whole time, just locked in for 12 straight
Well,
hours.
they have co-pilots. They may even have a third pilot.
And they'll just rotate?
I'm not a commercial pilot,
Sure,
but
sure.
I mean, they all have their own rules.
Yeah.
I mean, they only want them, I guess, to fly 20 hours a week. It's a high stress job, but it's a very comfortable job, but you have to be ready for the adrenaline incident. What do you do? What do you do if your engine cuts out at 25,000 foot? That's already happened. What do you do if you get red lights on for an alternator? That's already happened. All kinds of things.
What do you do if your engine goes out at 25,000?
Well, you get a shot of adrenaline free.
I bet.
It doesn't cost anything. And then you have to figure out, okay, what happened? And in one case, we're switching fuel tanks and it cut out.
Okay.
And I realized that, and I just had it in for maintenance, and the guy made a mistake. And I sort of had an idea what he did, so I did whatever I did at the time. I don't recall, but
Sure.
got it back and running. I mean, if you don't get your engine back, then you essentially have to glide.
Yeah.
The plane I had a good glide ratio, so I knew it could glide down. You're not going to fall straight down.
Yeah.
So that's one option. I had another incident where I took off from San Diego and pulled the gear up. And I knew right away, because all the lights didn't go out on the three wheels, that the hydraulic system blew out. So I'm up there at, not going full speed, and I couldn't land. I had tanks were filled up. I was going to Phoenix, and I said, well, you know what? This is a nice, beautiful airplane. I'm going to do whatever I have to do to, save it.
Yeah.
And so I'm going up to altitude, not going full speed. And of course, you have a manual that you pull out, the procedure manual. Okay, it says, all right, rock the wings, and the main gear goes in, but the nose gear doesn't flip in. And I'm trying everything in the manual, it still doesn't flip in, but I have a radio telephone. So I called up the operator.
Yeah.
In those days, you had to go to an operator.
Okay.
And I told her the incident. I said, get a hold of Piper Aircraft and the guy that designed the landing gear system. And of course, everybody was asleep there because I'm out on the West Coast.
Yeah.
So
You're just doing this in the air while you're flying.
Yeah, and all of a sudden I get like this panic feeling going through me, and I said to myself, well, that's not going to do any good. So I reached down around, I got a sandwich, and I started eating it, calmed down. And so she got the guy that designs it like a half an hour later.
Yeah.
And of course, air traffic controller said, do you want to declare an emergency? Which puts you through a whole bunch of other red tape. I said, no, not at this point. So at any rate, the guy tells me, okay, put it into a slight dive and pull it up. Okay, so I do it. It's like a half an hour of discussion. And I finally get it locked in. And of course, I couldn't get the flaps to work because they're hydraulic as well, but that didn't matter. So I landed over here at Scottsdale, and they of course say, oh, do you want to declare an emergency? No emergency. I don't want that, because then they make a big federal case.
After you declare,
before I'm landing, they want to put the fire trucks out.
Oh.
I don't know if they did or they didn't. But it turns out it was like a 5-cent washer that blew out of the hydraulic system.
Wow.
But that's the kind of stuff that happens. And, it's a new design airplane. It's a Piper Malibu, and it's a great airplane, but it was designed for fuel efficiency, lightweight. The engine, I think, was super lightweight aluminum.
Okay.
So they had a bunch of issues, and I guess a lot of the pilots were the guinea pigs to test it out.
So you were a guinea pig.
I was a guinea pig, but I survived.
Good thing you had that sandwich.
Yeah. But there were some other incidents that were actually bad and required the whole engine to be changed out.
So you had multiple instances where you were fine.
Yeah. And, some guys didn't make it. They brought in, 400 or 500 pilots at that point that had bought the planes probably over the last 3 or 4 years. And they said, all right, we're going to go through some training. I never really had an issue, but some people, they didn't do the ILS coupling right. And there was just, a lot of things that weren't totally bugged out. But that's typical of a lot of airplanes. There's always, there's a lot of moving parts.
That's crazy. That's super terrifying. I guess I want to go back to the history side of it. That's some cool stories, first of all, that you never shared on any of our walks. So I had to get you on a podcast.
We'll have to go on a longer walk.
Yeah,
then.
we're going to have to get a few more in. So, but one of my questions was that if you're in a commercial flight, and I know you said you never flown commercial, but if you're flying commercial across the sea and you're barely, let's say you're at the halfway point of the ocean and your engines go out, can you glide all the way to land?
Well, you have a certain distance, there's a glide ratio. So, there's guys that certainly have done that. And that's why, commercial planes, they'll fly, if they can, the Arctic route to go purposely. Well, it's a shorter distance, but they got Greenland, they got Iceland.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right. And
I've flown to Europe a few times. We've always stopped in Iceland.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But there's an airport there if there is an emergency, and certainly commercial planes have done that. Now, there are incidents, of course, where there was no airport, and that's a very unfortunate situation.
Sure. That's wild.
But probably the worst thing, at least these days, is just, there's human error.
Yeah.
For the most part, the mechanical stuff is pretty good. There's a lot of human error.
It feels like we wouldn't have human error because of all the technology. That's what I was under the naiveness of it. I just thought it was all tech.
That's a whole different area.
That's the Matrix.
Well, I don't know if it's a matrix. I think it's just, the government has been involved, and governments not only here, but all over the place controlling the air traffic controlling system. And, people get tired. The job is tedious, just like any other job. There's always accidents, not purposely, but just stuff happens.
Stuff happens.
Yeah, and of course, the people are always trying to improve the system.
So let's take me back to Matrix of Earth. I want to just think about this in the side of it, of the Matrix.
But to clarify, it's the Matrix dot Earth.
Dot Earth.
So it is. It's the book. No, I know. The title is The Matrix Earth, but the website is, you can just type it in, thematrix.earth.
Dot Earth. I got you. So we'll talk about me in that in a philosophical sense.
Okay.
How did you come to the Matrix perspective of the Earth? And is it have something to do with what we've collected on data and stuff that you saw in the formations in Sedona that are millions of years old?
Yeah, I just think, the concept of a matrix is there's some organization to it. And there's different theories of matrices.
Yeah.
You can have a mathematical matrix. You can make up your own matrix. But there's some organization to a matrix. So does the matrix control us?
Or do we control the matrix?
I don't think we control the matrix.
The matrix controls us.
Yeah, I think the matrix is probably something that humans are trying to discover. Particles are part of the matrix. Everything in the universe, you could say, is some organized structures. We're here on the planet. We've got functions like gravity are controlling us. This is an essential requirement of our existence. We've got oxygen here that's supporting us. The planet is spinning around. We've got the moon going. So we're in some sort of a matrix that is required for our existence. And we have to do certain things. We have to, drink water. We have to bring in protein, food. Yeah. We're in the matrix, okay? We have to follow these rules. And there are also items to the matrix that we basically don't even understand. Mankind is still trying to figure out, why are we here? What are we supposed to do?
Yeah.
Well, have we figured out the matrix, what it wants us to do? Or are we just being manipulated by the matrix? Who knows?
Why do you think so? I think on the surface, when you hear matrix, at least I do, you think matrix not from a universal standpoint. You think of it as like a government or a job or a hierarchy. More human to human, I would say, matrix system wise. Like, I'm leaving the matrix and I'm going to be outside of that. And I think a lot of times we can perceive that in a human to human side, if that's making sense. But what you're saying, it's almost, well, if I'm in a matrix of the moon and the sun and I see those rotate throughout the day, there's a time where the moon's out, there's a time when the sun's out. And I'm on this rock in the middle of them, floating within, breathing oxygen, having to eat, et cetera, like you're saying. And I can't leave that. Like, I can't get outside of that matrix, is how I heard you say it just now. But why do you think it seems so much, when we think matrix, it seems so much human to human, not universal? Does that make sense?
Well, I think you can put any limits on the matrix. You can say, okay, this is a sheet of paper and I got a mathematical matrix. You can define it as you did, or you can throw it out to the whole universe and say there's something that's controlling us, there's some organization. Or you can strip it away and just say it's so infinite I can't even totally grasp the concept. But when I see these images on formations that I believe are not man-made, they're there, they're information.
Yeah.
What is that a part of? What is this, call it artistic formation matrix? What is it all about? What does it mean? I can see certain mirrored reflections as to what we believe on this in our society, okay? But I don't know why it's there. I don't know how it got there. And I'm just saying, okay, there's some kind of a matrix out there. I could be totally wrong.
Right.
This could be total illusions on my part, except I got some pictures here, and I don't have to be the only one grasping the pictures. I can show 10,000 people how to get pictures and,
Go do it.
Yeah.
Go take your own pictures if you want.
Yeah.
Do you ever get uncomfortable with the fact that you yourself could maybe potentially have your own illusion? Like you saying, well, I don't know anything. Do you ever feel
So like I'm cracked up and I'm the only one observing this, or
no? Well, yeah, maybe that is the question. Well, I think of it as like, how can I like, I can't interpret, at least my perspective is I can't interpret reality how you do. And
I think everybody has their own perception of it. What is reality? Reality, I would think, is at a particular moment of time, people, if we have the same shared reality, we could look and we could say, okay, there's a pillow.
Sure.
There's a pillow there. There's a couch there. Whatever we want to say, we agree on. There's your cup. This is a book.
This is your book. Yeah.
Yeah, we are living humans,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
right?
Maybe.
Maybe. That's the definition that we've been brought up with in school. So that's a reality. Now, if somebody presents an image, it's, as we take it, this is, you could say, this is artwork. This is something that, we're interpreting. Now, certainly some psychologists are going to say, well, this is a Rorschach type of a test. Maybe it is. But I believe there's more information there than just a Rorschach image, okay? And it seems to me that it would be beneficial to understand it.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why we wouldn't want to understand it, because I think the more we do understand, the greater our perception of reality is. We don't have to limit our perception to just what we see, at a given point of time. Even if we go into a cave and we see some picture there or some artistic work that was etched in there by a human 1,000 or 10,000 years ago, there's a certain reality we're trying to couple to that individual as to what he did. So I don't know who did this stuff or how it came about. Is it God? Is it Mother Earth? Is it the forces of nature that did it? But it's something there. Why not explore it?
Well, what if people were around 280 million years ago and they edged those paintings into Sedona?
Well, it's highly unlikely, in my opinion, because at least if we look at the facts that are out there as to the evolution of the species, I don't even think ants were around 280 million years ago, little ants that crawl around.
Yeah.
So,
supposedly it was just single cell bacteria.
Well, it was probably more advanced at that point in time. There was, other stuff. Some of the bacteria goes back maybe 1 billion years or more. But there's just something there. Could it have been, let's say, there's microorganisms and bacteria. Some of them have a certain iron particles in there. Some of them, there's information that a lot of these bacteria are early non-single cell, but they form structures together. So is there some intelligence that brings them together, and they're able to form these structures, which are still being found. You can go out and see them. But here on a vast scale, when this is an open sea, things are floating around. Is it possible? Maybe it is another life form, maybe another intelligence from another, galaxy or whatever time frame that figured out how to send information, maybe on a gravitational wave or something that's coupled with it. Hits the ocean, gets coupled into the magnetic field of our system, somehow it's stored there, something happens. I don't know. But think of it this way. Let's say that we realize, and you've heard it, the sun is going to blow up or something's going to happen in 1 billion years from now. Some time frame. Well, okay, so the universe has been around. They're saying 13.7 billion. Some people think it's more. And there might be other universes and others evolving. So how can we let a future generation, 1 billion years from now, 10 billion years, who knows, let them know that we were here? Can we put something like a billboard, like we see in Sedona, out in the universe that'll be captured in some kind of a like type of environment as up in Sedona? And people 2 billion years from now will see, there was another civilization.
Sure.
Are they going to be smart enough to do it? Are we going to be smart enough to see something that, at least to this point in time, science really hasn't, focused on? It's there.
Well, so there's two thoughts I have on that. One, I want to ask before I lose this thought. It's like you said right there, is this a civilization? You said something along these lines. Is this civilization that does it? Something I've always thought about is like, what are we trying to do? Like a question of what is progress, essentially. What is progress? Like, what is the point? Where are we going?
All right. Well, right now it appears as not everybody wants to necessarily do it. Some people like staying where they're at, but at least progress in terms of, let's say, scientific research, research to human problems,
Sure.
Extending life. There's research going on. We're learning a lot. So that would be progress. But I think the ultimate question is, what is the purpose of life? What is the purpose? Why are we here?
Yeah.
Or why are there other life forms
Yeah.
on the planet?
Yeah. So is the point only to have your time on the planet trying to answer that? But then the more you get to anything, you always just realize you don't know anything.
Well, wait a minute. You're saying you realize a bunch of things and then you don't know anything?
Yeah. Like what if we're trying to figure out the point of life?
Yeah.
Let's say we figured that out.
Okay.
Let's say we had the answer to that.
Yeah.
What would we do with that?
Well, maybe survive.
So that's what I'm saying is survive. Like, what is the definition of surviving?
Well, here, let's look at it this way. Stephen Hawkins said something to the effect that probably the reason that we haven't discovered other current civilizations is that they got so smart that they developed nuclear bombs and destroyed themselves.
Yeah.
That's Stephen's idea as to what happened to other civilizations and what might happen to our own.
Yeah, so then we're just repeating history.
And we could be repeating the history of stupidity, yes.
Yeah.
Or is this a test that the universe throws out there and says, okay, we're going to have life out there, and who will give them the option. God maybe gives us the option. If they want to continue to survive, they'll figure it out. If the dumb ones want to self-destruct,
They'll do it.
they'll do it. Yeah. So where are we?
That's a great question. Well, let's say for the sake of our egos that we're the smart ones, right?
Great.
So we're the smart ones, but then you're still sharing the planet with dumb ones, or vice versa. We can be dumb and share the planet with smart ones. Aren't we still in a billionaire or billion person environment? I think at this point is interconnected through technology. Are we supposed to be solving this together? How do you get everyone to be on the smart side to survive?
Well, smart, dumb. I'm not gonna go there.
Okay.
I mean, basically, humans have the same genetic characteristics. Certainly, we've developed tests, and say some people have a X IQ, and some people X minus, whatever. It's based on learning. We tend to think that certain people have desirable attributes that supersede others. I'm not sure if that's
so you're talking like
not.
pure intellect right now.
Well, I'm saying everybody, I believe everybody has something to offer. I mean, they're all,
Right.
We're not that different. Might speak different languages, look a little bit different, but basically we're identical in terms of the genetic setup.
Yeah.
We might, at any rate, so the point is, if we look at humanity to this point in time, organized society, all they seem to be doing is fighting one war after another war after another war. It goes on endlessly. Is that a sign that we're essentially, or maybe something in the universe is saying, hey, you're not on the right path. Humans, Homo sapiens, you're not on the right path.
Right.
And because you're not on the right path, There's a element that's designed in to basically have you self-destruct,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
I mean, there are species that have lived on the planet and they're not here anymore. Why? You know, because maybe they didn't adapt properly.
Mm-hmm.
Are we adapting properly?
I don't know. I guess I just keep thinking back to that question. Is surviving meaning that you don't die? That's kind of the question I continue to have towards that, my thought towards
Well, the rule is that cells have a certain existence. People have a certain lifetime.
that. Yeah, so there is an end.
Well, there's an end, but if you look at the overall society, if you look at your body, you've got billions of cells, okay? Every day there's new cells formed, old cells dying off on your skin. They just flake off and new ones
Right.
come on, you know, and so it's an endless process. So if you look at humanity, you look at, okay, I was born, my parents aren't here anymore, I've got kids. It's part of a chain. It's part of a whole structure. So are you dying? In a certain way, yes, but in another way, your genes continue, although modified,
Right.
in another form to another individual to carry it on.
That to me gets out of material. That to me is more in like a infinite spiritual higher power realm discussion when I hear
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Well, I think of it as like to the sense of we're all one, and I'm dying as my cells as cells leave me while I'm alive. Parts of me die, and I'm being reborn multiple times as I evolve. Like my kid is gonna be reborn significant amount of times. So then in that size, it's like how have you not died 1,000 times in your life, and then you have an actual death where everything is just now dispersed and it's just back into the universe.
Well, okay. So I don't think you die 1,000 times
Okay.
or 100 times. I think you die, for the most part, from at least the objective point of view, once.
Objectively, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree with
Now,
that.
you know, you've got your body, and a lot of people say there's another aspect, your spiritual self.
Sure.
I mean, you could probably take somebody's brain out of their head and put it in somebody else's body, and they might survive. You've heard of, there's a book written, I believe it's called The Heart Code, where an individual, you know, had a heart failure. They gave them a transplant from another individual, and it turns out that the heart has certain memory cells, like brain cells, and that certain characteristics of the individual re-evolved into that individual.
That's
So,
cool.
you know, there's something that is, they call it the spiritual aspect, which of course is the basis of religion and
Yeah.
a lot of other things that we don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is this spiritual self part of something that is indeed the transfer element through the universe of life?
Do you think that that's been all of the reoccurring events of the species on the time that the planet's been here? Like essentially you bring in a new organism that has their own journey, and then they die off once they reach a certain point of consciousness, they self-destruct. And you think that's what's happened?
Well, I'm not sure if they self-destruct. It's just the limits of the design. You know, what exactly exists forever? What exists forever in this universe?
I mean, my answer to that would be God, a God, or whatever that is.
Okay, but that's, for the most part, God is, okay, the universe, it's the intangible,
Yeah.
spiritual aspect,
Yeah.
but it's a belief system,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if that exists forever, okay, so, but for God to exist, does it need conscious beings? Does it need consciousness
Right.
for it to exist?
Yeah. I mean, that's where you and I have talked a lot about, are we all one idea? and we all need each other as an idea to exist, making that, I don't want to say like this is what you've said. This is just, I know we've had conversations about this,
Yeah.
about us all being a singular idea. But in order for consciousness to be a thing, it needs everybody. So then how are we not all God? Like in our own little minuscule idea.
I don't know. I can't answer that.
I know. I feel like you've said that to me before too. I mean, I can't answer that either. It's just a question that comes up when I think about that thought, when that concept.
Right. I think the fundamental question a lot of people ask is, what's this universe about?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I here?
Right.
What am I supposed to do? And, a lot of people have answers. A lot of religions have answers to it, but it's some continuum that we exist within. And it makes it interesting to, explore these different ideas. But some people, unfortunately, just want everybody to have a certain idea.
Right.
And that
seems like a matrix in its own self.
Yeah, it's like something that is okay. You go to, let's say, a board meeting of a particular business, you got, let's say, 6 people there, and everybody's got a different idea. And they're arguing, they're fighting all the time, and nothing gets resolved.
Right.
Which brings us, I think, to the main topic, which we haven't hit so far.
No, but we've been doing good.
But I think the next thing is sports.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're going. And you're going to say, or ask, or people are going to say, what is this guy? He's jumping from a global concept to sports.
But they won't once you keep going. Because I've talked to you and I know where you're headed.
Okay. So this is the concept that I'm getting at in sports.
Yeah.
So we all have ideas, okay? Mm-hmm. They're bouncing around in our head all day long. And, we say, okay, during the day, we're going to do this game or that game. Now, a game can be, I'm going to the grocery store, I'm going to go shopping, I'm going to get the best prices. A game can be, I got to go and pick up my kid at school.
I like how you're incorporating that.
I got to do this design, I got to do X, Y, Z. There's always something going on. And that, I think, gives us purpose, but at the same time, it's not everything is crystal clear. There's always like maybe some haze in the background. Sure. Like, oh, our neighbor has got this really cool Ferrari. I'd like to have a Ferrari. What kind of business is he in? He's in a different game. Maybe I should get in that game. The guy down the street has got 3 houses, and I only have 1 house.
I like that game.
Yeah, it's a different game. So there's all this stuff going on in the background. So it's like, it's always going on. So there's always like this, I don't want to call it a cloud, but there's something going on that keeps us interested, or maybe you want to watch a soap opera, or maybe you want to listen to the news. You're captured, you're into it. So I believe with sports, it's the perfect opportunity to throw out, everybody goes to, let's say, a baseball game. They throw out unconsciously their world, and they see it materialize into a different form that makes a little bit of sense. They see the ball players out there who are sort of actors, which are, they can imagine a baseball game before they even go there or leave or watch it on TV. And the object, be it the baseball or the bat, are things that represent their ideas going around, and they see that. So this is mirroring what's going on, not in any objective way, but it's like, oh, I can see my world out there. I can participate in it from a little greater clarity than I can in this little fog in my brain. So they all see it, and they all get together, and they all participate in it. They can anticipate, okay, the ball should go from the catcher to the pitcher, and it should come back, and the batter should hit it. And I think the batter, just before he hits it, I think he's going to hit a home run. Oh, no, he doesn't. It grounds out, and he's out.
Yeah.
So, there's always this anticipation, just like people have in their own mind. Well, I'm going to imagine that I'm going to have that Ferrari next week, So it takes on a real psychological balance, I think, in people's world. And they believe in it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, I've heard you say that to me before, but that was really a beautiful breakdown. And I was really thinking about that in that aspect, because in my viewpoint of being in sports my entire life, I think that I wasn't able to see or hear what you said when I played sports. So I played professionally for a few years, and I was one of the characters. So I was one of the actors. And I think when I was acting, I don't know, obviously it's a hypothetical, I don't know if I would have been able to hear what you just said when I played. Now, as I've gotten out of it and I left sports as a player, and then my perspective started to change, which we talked about earlier, you kind of expand your limitation on perspective of reality. I would say now, even as someone who teaches in sport, that is how I see sports. And so I agree with you. Like, I feel like I hear you very clearly in the way in which I've understood it. And when I take that concept that you're sharing and I stand outside of something that I'm in regularly and I study that, it makes a lot of sense to why we psychologically react or respond to certain stimulus within the play, we'll call it, being sport.
Right.
The illusion or whatever that is, that reality. And one of the things is, from a fan aspect, I think fans view sport to what you're saying, and it's their reality television. It's their reality TV show. And so they're watching the actors, and they want actors to be certain ways. I think that's one of the reasons why when athletes get interviewed in media, if they deviate from any of the plan of what the media or the actors portray them as, there's a big uproar. So I think that's one example. I think the players in the performance, and this is, I would actually throw this back at you, because I would want, as a teacher and even as a former player, I guess I'm going to use the word wish here. I wish I would have known I was an actor in the play, because I feel like that would have actually helped my performance. Whereas a lot of the suffering that I see from a psychological standpoint with a lot of players is I would generalize and say they wouldn't want to agree with anything you just said or be able to see that. And I think a lot of it is because it goes against the solidification of their identity in which they believe to be so true. Does that make sense? Like, the actors can't see the performance as an act, because to them, they're so ingrained in playing the role that is real. Very real.
Yeah. No, it absolutely, it's real to them. And, I've known a lot of professional athletes, lived in our neighborhoods. They're into the details. They're into how to move their wrist if they're a pitcher, and they got all these different angles, or if they're a batter, how to do it, how to stand. I mean, they got to focus on it.
Yeah, they become
That's their
masters
job.
of it.
Their job and their level of focus has to almost be the same, or maybe even better than, let's say, a surgeon who's got his hand, it's got to be trained, over years. And of course, a baseball player, a football player, they go to training camps, summer camps to get reinforced in their skill.
They also largely start at young ages. So all their development years in motor skills are prone and ingrained into that sport, which I think is unique in sports over anything else. Because you're gaining motor skill as a kid. So in your massive development years, like a surgeon in my opinion, and what I see, a surgeon becomes a surgeon and they start training in their 20s, we'll say. but they can start in their 20s, master it in their 30s, whatever, have a great career in their 40s till
Well, and
whenever.
you see some kids who are just watching a show, 3-year-old prodigy playing a piano.
Right.
And so, are some of these athletes athletic prodigies? I mean, you don't have to be a violinist of 6 years old to be a prodigy.
Right.
You could be an athletic. I mean, you look at some of these gymnasts, young ages, they can do it.
Yeah.
The same with any of these sports. They have a skill. I mean, supposedly, I would like to think that every human has a unique skill.
Yeah.
Are we, as a society, seeking that attribute and encouraging those people to have that? Or are we just putting everybody in a particular cage that they have to do X, Y, and Z? Are we so mechanistic, this age of machinery, that we make everybody into a machine? Are we neglecting the basic human attribute?
Right. I think we do. I think that we do from a large scale structure side, and I talk a lot about that. I talk a lot about that in an educational and a sports sense. I think that a lot of times you take the imagination away from the kid once you get into the curriculum and the mechanisms of education. And I think the same thing happens in sports, because it's a lot easier to create a machine in a 10-year-old baseball player and teach this is a good example. When I used to coach youth athletes, I had a pitching program, and in my program there were 80 pitchers at a time. So I'm one coach. How likely is it that I was coaching 80 people individually? It wasn't. So what did I have to do? I had to create a system and a structure that I could feed people in through.
Right.
And so I had to have mechanisms, and that was able to run the system. But none of that promotes unique individual expression. So then how does the pro athlete become the pro athlete? Because they're unique. And
they got some unique skill. How does, what's his name? Yehudi Menuhin, or whatever his name is, a violinist, one of the greatest violinists. I mean, it's something that's there.
Yeah.
And
so do you think that's innate?
Well, some of it is, yeah.
Yeah, it has
I
to
mean,
be.
look at Einstein. How did he get to where he is? Was there some, they say he had actually, when they did an autopsy, that his the blood vessels to his brain were higher than an average person.
Really?
Yeah. So,
he's your guy, huh? Einstein.
Well, he seems like he's done a pretty interesting job.
Yeah.
At certain things.
I've never heard that before.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So he was getting more oxygen into the brain.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah, well, but he discovered certain things, that were, he knew how to tap into the universe, I think, which I think we restrict people from that attribute.
Yeah, so I agree with that tremendously, because I think that's back to the matrix. You have to tap out of a structured matrix and get into the universe where there's infinite possibilities. Your consciousness can expand.
That's your matrix. I'm saying that he tapped into the matrix. You're saying he's tapping out.
Okay, sure.
But either way, I'm just kidding.
No. We can roll with that for sure. I guess what I would say is, if the matrix of school, to my understanding of Einstein, he tapped out of that matrix.
Well,
and tapped into the matrix that was bigger.
Okay, but what I'm saying, he used what he learned, certainly in the matrix, but I think he was a self-learner to a large extent.
Yeah.
They say he did a lot of his work in the patent office, just researching stuff. So he's like an independent researcher. He was also, like a religious person. But they would say, or I think he aggravated his wife, he would, after dinner, supposedly sit in a chair, lean back, go into like a quasi-state, a Zen state, sit there for a half an hour, throw out an idea, and then a day or two later, the solution would come to him, and he never knew why.
Yeah.
So that's what I talk about, tapping into the system. Why can't, if he could do it, why can't a lot of other people do it? Why don't we teach that?
Right.
And I think the reason is, if for the early part of the 19th century, we get into this mechanistic age, we're producing products, we're producing cars, all the same. A lot of people are almost robots.
Yeah.
And now we're even emulating robots to do what we do, to take over what we do. I don't know if that's going to be a freedom for humanity or whatever, but there's a lot of repetitive things. Obviously, people want robots to replace the robotic, repetitive stress that people go through. You're working on a production line your whole life, putting fenders on.
Yeah.
It's a good way you can make money in our society and everything. A good, pitcher where there's more competition, but he has to go out there and he has to throw the ball within certain limits all the time. He's going to get stressed. His arm is going to get stressed. His body's going to get stressed out. You look at Mickey Mantle. His whole body deteriorated because he overstressed it.
Yeah.
So there's all these stress factors. But some are better than, from a monetary point of view, than other jobs.
Did Einstein, I got to go back to this thought, do you think that did he do all that from training his mind? Or did he do anything with psychedelics or anything like that? Do you know?
Oh, I'm just guessing. I would doubt that.
Really?
I think there's no indication that he was into alcohol or any sort of addiction.
I've never heard that either. I just feel like a lot of times now people are trying to reach that through psychedelics.
Well, I think that's not going to work.
Yeah.
They're saying, okay, look at alcohol, look at different drugs. It actually diminishes one's awareness.
Right.
It reduces, your stress level. I think, if you're working on a problem, maybe you are stressed. It's not always going to be a comfortable thing.
Right.
So, it was fun to take pictures, put the book together. It's a lot of work, and you have to work with other people, other companies. Stressful. You got to go and sell it. You got to make sure it gets in the right place.
Yeah.
So there's always stress to different, things that you do.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I just am curious because essentially he just went and started, in his trance state, he just was meditating is a simple way I think that.
I'm sure he was doing a lot of other things. You look at other people that are successful. They like what they do. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them are successful at what they do. And they're willing to put the time into it.
Yeah, what do you attribute your success to? Because you've had tons of success in different endeavors.
That's a good question. I think a lot of it has to do, at least in the business that I'm in, being at the right place at the right time.
Mm. So is that out of your control then?
Well, I can't pick every place that I'm at. Meeting some of the right people, having the right relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about that a lot too. Well, this is great, man. How are you feeling? You want to keep going, or where you at?
Sure, whatever. You're the boss. I'm just doing what I'm told here.
I love listening to you. I think my favorite thing about hanging out with you the last couple months is there were a couple times, but I feel like we've always come back to the thought that we just don't know.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah, so then it's there's such a freeing side to that, but there can also, the flip side to that can be very frustrating. And I think that's something I would just ask you as someone who looks up to you, and I've enjoyed hanging out with you these last couple of months. It's like when we talk about it, we have such a freedom of I don't know. But how have you dealt with that in just your life of building awareness to I just don't know, and I'm cool with that. I'm comfortable with that.
It's just part of the equation, you know.
You say it's so simple.
Well, it is. I mean, we don't know very much. That's my opinion. You know, we can focus as humans on playing with certain toys, I call it.
Sure.
You know, certain technology, doing certain books. You know, it's just, well, I guess what you want to do, what you feel comfortable doing.
Do you think that, what would be your answer? What would be your definitive, I guess, answer for, is that the point of life? Is just playing with your toys?
Well, the way you made it sound, not your toys,
the
toys.
Yeah,
okay. I mean, what's ever out there, like you see a certain opportunity in business. Like I saw a certain opportunity, I listened to customers, and they said, well, we like this or we like that. And okay, we go and produce it. And that's an evolving, changing event. I got to a point where it was just repetitive. And for some reason, and I don't know why, I felt I had to do something else. And I've done other things and still am doing other projects, which all of them seem to relate to how can something be done better than what it's being done, okay? Or if it's not being done, can I try to do it? Would other people be interested in it? So that's what I think motivates me. Now, if I start a project, I'm on one project right now where you get stuck. You know, you don't know, so you have to go and do research, or maybe you say, okay, the technology is not there to complete it at this point in time. So you go to another project or enhance one that you already have working. So right now I've got, you know, the matrix.earth thing, which I'd like to expand a little bit on, like to make other people aware of it, like to get other people contributing to it. I've got two other projects. One is in sports. Another is, you know, in a more conservative business.
Sure.
So that's what's interesting me at this point.
If you, to the sports aspect, if you, to the concept that we talked about earlier, what would you do with that information? So you're talking to someone like myself who's in sports, and I coach people who are in sports. What am I supposed to do with that information if I package that together? Like, because the project of sport is to win. So that's the project. If I'm with a team.
Well, but that's you want to make sure whoever you work with wins.
Right.
Right. But part of winning means somebody has to lose. Right.
Right.
I mean, at least in sports. So that's where it goes.
And that's what I'm saying. That's the project that would
and
be that.
That's what I think drives sports, is because, okay, you're working to get the baseball team A to win, and somebody's working on baseball team B and C, et cetera.
Sure.
And they're going to win sometimes, you're going to win sometimes. It would probably be really boring if team A won all the time.
Right.
It would be, because I think you got to have this variable in sports as a reflection as to what your fans are about. They're winning. Sometimes you got some people that are winning all the time, very few, and some people that are unfortunately losing all the time. But in sports, it's a balance between the two.
Yeah, but for sure. But you're trying to win. If you're team A, you're trying to win all the time.
Right. But the reality is you're not going to win all the time.
No, I know. But if I have the information, if I'm going with the perspective that you shared of the ball and the bat as an idea, and I'm an actor, or I'm overseeing the actors in the idea, and we're trying to win those ideas all the time. We're trying to get that guy with the bat out regularly. Like what from the concept of everything we've been talking about, how do you take that perspective and allow it to serve the greatest potential of you winning all the time?
I'm not sure I totally follow.
So if we simplify it to, okay, sport is a fan, right? Like we were talking about earlier. Fans are watching the actors. The actors, the pitcher has a ball, hitter has a bat, and those are ideas. The second he throws the ball, there's an idea on the ball, or that is the idea. And
it represents the thing that's going on in the spectator's mind. It's just some sort of energy, call it that, right? And it is.
Yeah, it is.
It's some kind of energy smacking against some other energy.
Yeah.
Could be the guy goes home and he has an idea. He throws it out to his wife and he gets smacked, not physically, but his idea is knocked out. And it doesn't have to be going home. It could be going to work, or his kid knocks the idea down. But that's what happens in life. You throw out an idea. Some people, oh, that's a great idea.
Some people don't.
That's a home run.
Right. Or you strike out.
Strike out.
Yeah, so you're just talking about it as like I take that as like a poetic sense. You're just talking about it from what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my question of it is, how do you win if you're in the show?
Well, you do your best, right? You practice and everything else, but so is the other side going to do that? I mean, you've got rules that are set up, right? If it's a football game, you had a certain field set up, and you've got people that are referees that are making sure you follow the rules. You don't cheat.
Yeah.
I mean, because we know if you cheat, you might be able to win, right? And you're not supposed. The players aren't supposed to bet on the game. To have an advantage or a disadvantage. So it's totally representative of the fans' world. That's what's been created. It's a total representation in a morphed form.
Wow, I like that. You really brought that together for me. That's beautiful. I like that.
So all you're doing is you go to the game and you got your eyeballs there. And even though they're out in the field, they're doing all this stuff, you're replicating this in your brain. You can go home, you can lay down on the couch, sit in a chair, and replicate the whole thing. You don't have to be there.
No.
You can go to space or wherever you want to go, and you can play a game that you saw 20 years ago in your head.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like you're pulling it in and you're attaching certain feelings, emotions to it. Certain things happen in your brain, but it's totally representative of society.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And you look at there's different kinds of games. Politics is probably the ultimate game.
Yeah.
Soap operas are reflections of the game.
Well, and that's where I think it's just that's entertainment. It just entertains us while we're here.
Yeah, look at the world stage. You got these battles going on.
Yeah,
they're similar to sports, although and they're supposed to even have rules as to how you handle prisoners of wars.
Yeah,
how you do this and how you do that. I mean, it's like you got to be kidding, but it's the killing game.
Well, that's the weirdest thing to me about it is on all the games, I go back to as simple as I make it sound. It's like it's just made up. It's an illusion.
Huh.
But then with the doesn't matter, what of it matters?
What of it matters? That's a good question.
Right.
I mean, what does it matter? What else are the people going to do? They haven't figured out what to do. So they do that.
I'll just do the politics.
I mean, we're on this planet Earth. We're on a rock. What are we going to do? Oh, we could kill each other. We could play games.
We can have politics. We can play sports.
Make babies.
Make movies.
Go to movies. Rob people. Do great inventions. Create nuclear bombs.
Yeah. Fly around.
Fly around. Do this. Do that.
For what?
Because I think we don't know what we're supposed to do.
Right.
You know, it's like being on a playground. You play, right? You go to school, you're supposed to learn something. I don't know. I think we're sort of drifting. That's what I think.
You too. We're all just dust in the wind.
Could be, but we have this ability to sense things. And I think, you know, at least if the universe gave us this ability, what are we supposed to do with it?
Right.
And that's what I think people are trying to figure out. Some people, not everybody. And there's information out there that might lead us to perceiving our existence in the world differently.
And maybe that's the point.
Maybe.
What, how can, here, you can obviously see this. We'll take a picture of it too, but is there anything that you want to mention on how people can find you? Because I'll show the book.
They could go to,
obviously, you got the matrix.earth.
Yeah, go to the matrix.earth, and the website shows how to buy this book if you want to.
Okay.
Also, there's a couple other books I did, so if they want to do that.
Sweet.
They can do that.
Yeah, we'll let it rock, man. But hey, this was awesome.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was fun. I knew we were crushing it. I've been trying. Well, we've tried a few times this. We just haven't been able to pull it off.
Okay.
We finally got to pull it off, so it was a pleasure. You owe me a few more walks before I head up north.
All right.
Is that fair?
That's fair.
All right, signing off. Lance, this was a pleasure. Thanks, guys. Cheers.